All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Village Board meeting to order on Tuesday, June 21, 2022, and ask you if you'd all please rise and join the Village Board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Canty?
Here.
Trustee Grassi?
Here.
Trustee Scaletta?
Here.
Trustee Baldino? Trustee Lebeds?
Here.
Trustee Bertucci?
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Here.
Trustee Tenalia? President Hayes?
Here. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have 3 sets to approve tonight. The first is from our Joint Village Board and Library Board meeting of May 7, 2022. Any changes or passes?
Pass.
Passed by Trustee Schwingbeck.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee Lebeds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next are the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from our meeting on June 6, 2022. Any changes or passes?
Pass.
Move approval.
Passed by
Second.
Trustee Bertucci. Motion to approve by Trustee Lebeds.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck.
Okay.
Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And finally, the Village Board meeting minutes from that same evening, June 6, 2022, passed again by Trustee Bertucci. Any changes or other passes? Seeing-
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by
Second.
Trustee Grassi. Questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We would then move on to the approval of the accounts payable, and I call on Trustee Bertucci.
I'll move approval of the warrant register for 6/15/2022 in the amount of $4,163,962.72.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Scaletta. Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Grassi?
Yes.
Trustee Lebeds?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Canty?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Well, next under presentations, we're very pleased to be joined by a very large group from Metra here today. They got a whole team. They got a whole team of 5. And so they're not here to play basketball. They're here to make a presentation to the Village of Arlington Heights. And it's certainly very welcome. Let me just, before you guys come up, let me get a show of hands of people who are here to hear the Metra presentation and perhaps make comments. Okay, we do have a number of people, so thank you for joining us tonight. I think the fact that Metra has such a big showing here tonight shows how concerned they are about addressing the concerns of our commuters, of which I have been one for 40 years. And so I do very much appreciate the audience members. I appreciate Metra being here tonight. We do have other commuters on the board, including Trustee Canty, who's also an RTA director, and Trustee Lebeds is a longtime commuter as well. I know all of us have taken the Metra line to Chicago, to or from Chicago, many, many times over the past number of years. Again, myself included, over 40 years. And so I understand how difficult a challenge it must be for the scheduling department in Metra to make changes in a COVID-19 environment and now in a post-COVID-19 environment. And certainly you can't please everybody. We've learned that as elected officials. I know Metra has not just heard from Arlington Heights. I'm sure you've heard from other communities as well. But we very much appreciate your attendance here this evening to explain the rationale for some of the schedule changes. Just so the community is aware, myself and Trustee Canty and others have communicated directly with a number of different Metra officials, including I've talked directly, I know as Trustee Canty has as well, with the Executive Director and CEO Jim Derwinski, and other officials, including Director Rod Craig, a fellow mayor of mine, and other officials at Metra. So they have already heard our concerns. This is not the first time that Metra will be hearing our concerns. And one of our concerns is that Arlington Heights feels, and Metra can address this, that we've gotten kind of the short end of the stick in terms of the changes. especially with the loss of some express trains, that our commuters are valued so much in terms of their scheduling, both getting downtown and getting back home for baseball games and PTA meetings and village board meetings and you name it. So we have, for months now, expressed our concern, and we know that Metra is trying to be responsive. They're trying to make schedule changes as appropriate based on input that they have received. But I know that they have other challenges to meet along the line. It's not just Arlington Heights that they have to address as well. So with that, I do want to turn it over to Metra spokespeople. And guys, if you come forward, who's ever going to speak, and please introduce yourself if you would.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm Daniel Miodonsky, the manager of service design at Metra. And with me is...
I'm Michelle Dolnick. I'm also a scheduler and service designer at Metra.
Okay, so I think that's okay if we begin?
Yep, please.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the invitation tonight, and thank you to Trustee Canty for speaking with me earlier. So next slide, please.
There's a slide advancer on the dais on your right hand.
Perfect. Okay. So the purpose of our presentation tonight is to give a little bit about a background of the schedule. As we're all aware, the schedule has changed recently, actually twice last month. Also to give a little bit of an overview of the schedule features, so what's actually in the schedule and some of the rationale behind the changes we made. And then lastly, some of the future steps we plan on taking as we receive additional feedback and we see how operations perform. So just to back up to the very start. So in 2020, I think we know exactly what happened. COVID-19 hit. The way of life in many facets has radically changed. Transit was no different. Ridership plummeted across Metra, across the country in transit agencies. And so we actually implemented reduced levels of service, so reduced schedules that still provided core service. And these schedules are actually based upon our winter service schedule. So basically when we had those polar vortexes a few years ago, that was the schedule that we implemented. So we did realize, though, that our goal was not to have the polar vortex schedule in effect for very long. But of course, just like everyone else, we weren't sure exactly how long the pandemic would last. But because the service was reduced, because of the reduced ridership, and also we wanted to ensure we could provide the service with manpower issues and other factors with COVID and the uncertainty it bring. We actually added service where we could, just filled in the gaps, knowing that ridership was growing throughout 2020 and into 2021. So we had kind of a bit of a Frankenstein schedule. We had the polar vortex schedule, and we added trains where we could, just to address gaps in service. So that lasted about 2 years actually on the Northwest line across the system as we were trying to best handle the evolving conditions with COVID. So while this was all happening for those 2 years, we were actually kind of taking a step back and wanted to flesh out some of the ideas we had for schedules and service design. Metra is a big system. It's 11 lines all across the region. Goes all the way from Joliet to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And what we did was we kind of took a step back and established, okay, what are some principles, what are some things we want to see with the schedule? So not only because of the COVID changing landscape, but just in general. So we established some guiding principles to kind of guide our thinking and focus our thoughts. And let's quickly run by what the guiding principles were. But number one, provide consistent and frequent service throughout the day. And I'll show you in the next slides what exactly that means. Easily understandable and memorable service patterns. So again, making things standardized essentially. Including new express service when possible. Again, evaluating our markets and where we can include new express service. Exploring reverse commute and new ridership markets. One thing we did notice, as I mentioned, that during COVID we had actually a less intense rush hour. So we call the peak of the peak, just because of the reduced ridership, people weren't coming down as great numbers as they were previously. In fact, we're only at about 40% of our ridership as compared to 2019. So we just don't have that demand we once had across the system. And this isn't unique to Chicago. We're seeing that across the country, that transit ridership has not rebounded fully from 2019. So how do we replace those riders? And that second to last bullet point kind of addresses that. Let's look at new markets, reverse commute. What else can we do to help fill the seats? And then lastly, promote regional equity. Again, the purpose of these principles is to really focus our thoughts, guide our thinking, make sure we're having the same approach across the system, across all 11 lines. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. I apologize if it's a little difficult to see. I'll just kind of go over the highlights. So pre-COVID, this is actually the Union Pacific North Line schedule. It's a line that also goes into Ogilvy. It's one of the first lines we actually changed during the pandemic. So pre-COVID, almost every single train trip in the morning was different. So if you missed your train originally or wanted to take a later train, you kind of had to know the schedule. You kind of had to memorize it. Kind of we call this a bespoke type schedule. Post-COVID, or the period we're in now, we wanted to standardize that. So right now a train comes approximately every 30 minutes or so. There's two types of trains essentially, kind of a skip stop and then a local, and that repeats throughout the rush hour. So if you, let's say, with flexible work schedules with COVID, perhaps you want to come in later one day, you can take the exact same type of train, it's just essentially 30 minutes later, and you don't have to necessarily reference the schedule. Again, that's what we're talking about with these memorable, standardized schedules. And that's kind of some of the thinking behind it. This is just an example because that's one of the first schedules we actually changed. So in July 2021, as ridership was increasing, we changed 4 lines. BNSF, which is our busiest line ridership-wise, to Aurora, UP North, which again goes to Kenosha, and I just showed you, Metro Electric, which goes through the south side to University Park, and the Rock Island District, which goes to the southwest side to Joliet. Our intent was to roll out additional changes, but unfortunately because of Delta and then Omicron, we did not actually get that far. So in 2021, we kind of paused on the other lines while those variants kind of worked their way through the system. And then to talk a little bit more specifically about the Northwest line in particular, I'll hand over to Michelle.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so, as customers started to come back this year, we saw the ridership increase, and this trend was continuing upward. We knew, too, people were going to be coming back sort of the first of each month was kind of a goalpost for when businesses were going to start calling employees back. And we'd been hearing comments about trains that were full or there were gaps in service. So we saw there was demand out there, particularly on the Northwest line. So with all that, we decided in April to implement this new schedule. So that way, as people were coming back to work, coming back downtown, we had trains available for them. So in April, with that first change, we added 21 trains total over what was out there up to that point with the COVID schedule. Okay, and then like Dan said, some of our principles were to have this repeating zone structure for people who had flexible work schedules. The zones are based on ridership data. I'll get to that in the next slide. And then infrastructure does play a role. So this line is different from a lot of our others in that it has 3 tracks. So we can do express and local service. And we have different places that we can turn the trains to come back inbound or outbound. And so we had ridership data from before the pandemic, but we'd also been collecting and looking at ridership data that we got from the Ventra mobile app. We could tell where people were traveling to which zones based on that data. So we used that to compare against what we'd had before to see how things had changed, who was coming in and where over the course of the pandemic. And then as we built the schedule, we put some trains in new time slots, again, to serve these new markets as people were changing how they commuted, how they traveled. We wanted to be able to fill in those gaps. And we saw, again, that rush hour, it's not as peaky, it's not as sharp as it used to be. Some people, they might come in the morning for a meeting and then go home in the afternoon, or they might not even come in every day of the week anymore. So it's different from what we've seen in the past. So we kind of, spread the peak out a little bit, instead of having it being concentrated so much at getting people down at like right 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. So compared to the pre-COVID schedule though, the trip times from the stations, they're all pretty comparable. So for example, it's about 40 minutes between Arlington Heights and downtown. That's what it was in the pre-COVID schedule, about that amount of time, and that's what it is now. So that's not changed at all. And so we looked at, too, compared to how long it would take to drive in rush hour traffic from here to downtown, and the train is still competitive, even if you have a few more stops than you did with the express trains. Okay, so here, this is the schedule. You can see the numbers at the top in red, those are passenger counts from June 6th, so just a few days ago. And you can see they're pretty well balanced, the different patterns there. So if we take trains 6:20 and 6:22, 6:20 leaves at 6:30 from Harvard, 6:22 leaves Barrington at 7:20. You can see the loads, they're pretty close. So it's 520 and 468. So they're very nicely balanced. And this is part of why we had the split at where we did for the 3 different zones, was to help keep the loads balanced so there weren't any crowding issues. So if, for example, we were to take train 620 and add another stop, a couple stops on it, it's possible that that train is going to be too crowded, or maybe there's not enough seats for everyone. So that's why we have these patterns set up the way we do. Another thing you can see pretty easily with the 2 that are highlighted is we set up transfer opportunities for folks that maybe need to get from, say, Harvard to Mount Prospect. They're able to do that with just a 5-minute wait at Barrington or Palatine. So that also went into this. So what we're doing is we're observing train performance and ridership. We're seeing the passenger counts daily. We've been doing observation rides where we go out ourselves in the morning and the evening to see how the loads look, how is the running time, those kinds of things. We've been communicating with Union Pacific to see what they're hearing too. We've been reading all the customer feedback that comes through either our website, that gets called in, social media, that all comes to us. We look at it. We've been gathering that to kind of see what's being asked for, trends, and what people are looking for. And then we have made one change so far based on comments. So on May 31st, we did add more service to Arlington Park, and we did make some peak local trains to accommodate people who aren't going all the way down to Ogilvie, but maybe need to get off at Park Ridge, so they, don't have to make that transfer if they don't want to at an intermediate station. So we are looking at all of this. We most likely will make future adjustments. We don't have, a firm date for that yet, but we aren't just going with something and sticking with it for 3 decades like in the past. So please, be assured that we are taking this in seriously, and we will make adjustments when it's feasible. And that's it, if there's any questions or
Thank
comments.
you. Let me just first ask if there is a contact point that people who do want to provide input should contact. Is there a phone number, an email, address?
Yeah, 2 things. So, on the Contact Us page of our website, that actually goes right into our automatic service tracking functionality. So we get those directly. So there's a page called Contact Us on Metra.com. It's right on the top. And then also for today in particular, we do have some comment forms that we'll be collecting before we leave. So if anyone here wants to just write it or speak to us, that's okay too.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Scaletta.
So is that form something that we can put on our website or send out through social media, because not everyone makes it to the meetings?
I would say the website is the best form for that, because we do have, it goes into our database for record keeping sake. So it is just Metra.com, and it's Contact Us. So I think for other purposes, that would be the best form.
Okay. You can understand how sometimes people would think that maybe that doesn't go anywhere or it's not heard.
Sure.
Okay. So
yeah,
that's,
we do read those. I've called several commuters myself. I actually, have a little bit of experience setting up that database, so I know it does work, and we do actually read that. So
okay. Well, it's great to know, and we will all tell people that, because they weren't feeling heard.
Okay.
And they were reaching out to us.
Gotcha.
And Obviously, we don't control Metra. And I've spoken with Mayor Craig many times over the years. My wife takes the Metra on a regular basis, all through the pandemic, except for about 3 months. And I want her home as much as possible. I don't want her on the train any longer than she needs to be. And so I guess I have some questions for you. Well, some comments and questions, and we'll kind of go through them. What is, along the Northwest line, what is your busiest stops, or what are your busiest stops?
So I believe the busiest stop is Arlington Heights, yeah. That is,
Okay.
it's Arlington Heights, Palatine, and I believe are the two busiest, off the top of my head, yeah, without looking at the latest numbers.
Okay. And what's the percentage of people that come from Arlington Heights that go all the way downtown?
You know, I'd have to check the mobile app. I don't know that off the top of my head, but most of our riders go all the way downtown from when they commute. It's a large percentage.
Okay. So the express trains mean an awful lot to the people that live in Arlington Heights,
Sure.
as I'm sure they do in Palatine. And I think that's a lot of why Trustee Canty urged you guys to come forward, as we were hearing from a lot of residents that chose Arlington Heights because of the great schools and library and parks, but also the express trains along the Metro line. And so I appreciate you being here tonight, I really do. But this is an opportunity for us to give you some feedback. The app is a little bit quirky. Open it, shuts down, you open it again. And it doesn't always tell you the train track that the train's gonna be on.
Okay.
And
Yeah, we're in strictly in scheduling. We do have, obviously, with some of our colleagues who work on the app. I can pass this feedback along, though, for sure.
Okay. And so as someone who doesn't ride, but someone who picks and drops off my wife,
Sure.
so I'm looking at the app quite often, and I'm not getting the emails, the flood of emails that my wife gets, and every time something happens on the Northwest line. But for example, on Monday, something went wrong, and there was a huge delay. And then there was a freight train that came through. There was some kind of dispatch problem. I'm not sure exactly what it
Yeah,
was.
I believe there was actually an issue with the communication system from dispatching to here. So that
Right.
did happen on Monday, yeah.
And it's just coincidental that it happens the week that you're
Yeah,
coming
no,
here,
no,
yesterday.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, but the app doesn't really provide you with up-to-date information like the emails do. So as someone who doesn't get the emails, and I don't want the emails because you're sending me all kinds of information that means nothing to me, but when I'm trying to help my wife figure out how she's going to get to work, then it'd be helpful if the app was as up-to-date as the emails are.
No, that makes perfect sense, and honestly, I'm a Metro commuter myself, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We are actually, I do know this, I can speak to this, we are in the process of updating our GPS system, so hopefully that will improve. I don't have concrete dates because I'm not working on that specifically, but we are working on, Metro as an agency is working on updating its GPS system to address that very concern, because it makes all the sense in the world to have, real-time arrival time.
Great. And then the other challenge that I think that the app has is when there's a problem on the line and the line is shut down, and I'm trying to figure out how or where I'm going to pick up my wife to get her home. If I don't know that it comes out of Union Station and I'm on Ogilvy, it just goes nowhere. So I think that the app needs to be a little bit more intuitive, that it it goes, okay, you want to go to Prospect Heights, well, it's going to come out of Union Station, instead of just taking me nowhere.
Gotcha, okay.
And I'm just trying to give you some feedback. We never see you guys.
No,
So happy that you're here.
That's why we're here, yeah.
And I know that travel means so much to our residents. They're trying to not get on the expressways. They're trying to use public transportation, and they want to support Metra, but they just don't feel heard. And it's good to hear that you guys read everything that comes through, contact us, because frankly, you just kind of think that it goes somewhere and it's not being read. I think that the final thing I'll tell you, and that, this is kind of pre-COVID, but it'll come back again, is that when we would take the Metra on a weekend and it was very busy, they decided that they're just not going to go around and check for tickets.
Gotcha, okay.
And that's so frustrating to the people who are paying for it on a monthly basis, to see that everybody else on the train is riding for free because it's so busy, and that Metro's just not anticipating it. I don't know if the conductors are frustrated because there's not enough help, but they just stop. And we were very fortunate for many years to have the former mayor on the Metro board, and she was someone that we could always reach out to. And, you know, fortunately, many of us know Mayor Craig, and so we vent to him, but he's all the way out there. And I'm hoping that that the feedback that you received tonight is valuable, and that you guys find ways to implement some of the feedback that you receive. And you know, several times, you know, you guys have said, and I understand that, you know, you're as close to a governmental body as you can get, that when you say, you know, sometime in the future, but you don't have an exact date, doesn't give people a lot of confidence. And so I think that, you know, by the end of July, you know, by the middle of July, by the end of the summer, those kinds of things give people more confidence that something's going to happen sooner than later.
Sure. And yeah, that makes sense as well. I think that the big kind of question mark we have, you know, it's still, even though we're 2 years into it, is we don't know the ridership projections, because it's been changing, frankly, month to month. So if we see ridership change drastically, we'll respond to that. And I think, as Michelle mentioned too, we made us change 1 month in, which is, you know, pretty tight, quick turnaround for us. You know, so we have we let the schedule go into effect for 1 month. Saw feedback about people wanting to not want to transfer, want to use local stops, so we made the trains go out farther, the local trains on May 31st. And also on our BNSF line, just as an example, we did that pilot schedule in 2021. We've actually already changed the schedule 3 more times in response to, you know, outside conditions. So we are trying to be as responsive as possible. We don't have a firm date. We don't want to, you know, give false expectations either. That we're trying to manage just a lot of things with COVID and our ridership dynamics.
I don't want you to give false expectations either. But I want you to know that the people that are riding the train don't care about the people that might ride the train later. They care about them riding the train now, and they want to know that they matter. You know, and I understand what you're saying. I really do. And I'm not trying to be combative with you, but they matter now. And they want to know that they matter now, and they want to know that someone's hearing them.
Sure.
And while they care about their fellow rider who might be joining them at a future time, they want answers.
Sure.
So.
And then also, just to that point, one more thing, as Michelle mentioned, we're looking at new ways to gather feedback. We have put QR codes on the trains themselves, and that feedback that's schedule related gets ported directly to us. So we are looking at, you know, how do we make it even easier for people to reach out. So I don't know if you've seen it recently, there's QR codes next to the seats. You scan that, your phone will take you to a little survey form, and that actually goes to us as well. So we're trying different ways to get you know, additional feedback, because, you know, there are a lot of unknowns. You know, like we said, with people, days of work, people are traveling, times that might be shifting. So we are trying to broaden our reach as much as possible.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here tonight. It means an awful lot to this board, and it means an awful lot to the residents and the riders of this village.
Thank you.
Trustee Lebeds.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I echo Trustee Scaletta's comments in thanking you for being here. It means a lot. As Mayor Hayes said, I'm also a longtime commuter, not as long as he, but many years, because I had a break of a couple of decades, but many years ago, we bought a house to walk to the train here in Arlington Heights, because I had literally gotten stranded from the heavy snowstorms that predate you in the late 70s that were 80 inches of snow. The train went through, but my other transportation couldn't make it, you know, to the train station. So and I know many other people, you know, the housing around the Arlington Heights train station, one of the drawing points is the access to the train, as you understand. And so, and I have followed, as I've also been transitioning back, I understand intellectually the changes that you've made with the intermediate stops, with the grouping, the three grouping, trying to move this is a long, long line. I think it's your longest, if I understand correctly. So trying to get people from Harvard and Crystal Lake downtown in a more reasonable amount of time, so not to have more stops for them. I understand it intellectually, but as Trustee Scaletta said, we care about ourselves. And when that 6:38 train was eliminated, when you redid the schedule, there was no way I could get to my office before 8 o'clock in the morning. And I can't tell you how stressful that was, because I have to walk on the other end. I have a good 18 to 20 minute walk once I get out of Ogilvy. So between that and then service interruptions and so on, and I understand the challenges that you're dealing with COVID, staffing, and all that sort of thing. And I have a son who is a senior transportation planner for a major transit agency out east, and we talk about this stuff. And so I understand from different vantage points what you're dealing with, but I think especially when we are the largest ridership in the Arlington Heights station, not to have an express train is something that is, I'll just say, is very disappointing. Even at least one in the morning and one in the evening, even if I don't get it, at least I know there are people that miss it. Because sometimes, an extra 3 or 4 minutes shaved off of your commuting times might make all the difference when you're able to, maybe pick up your kid from daycare or get home to go to the PTA meeting or see your kids in their sports or something like that. One thing I do want to mention in terms of communication, I am surprised that I get the emails when there's service interruptions or there's delays or whatever, and that's good, but why aren't these things on Twitter and in a sort of a real time? Because I'll go to Twitter sometimes when I'll see something in an email and think, well, maybe there's something that's more of the moment. And so I go to Twitter and I'm going to the Northwest line, the UP Northwest line, and I'll see what pops up is a tweet from 2 days before. So that's something I would suggest in terms of the many, because you need to have many different ways of communicating with people. I don't use the app as regularly as some people do, but I like my paper ticket. So, but I do have the app and I have used it. So, so that's something that I would suggest.
Okay.
I do want to give a compliment. I am excited about your upcoming 3-month trial of your $100 pass.
Oh, excellent.
And I think that hopefully will help with ridership, and it may help with ridership even at off times or may encourage people on weekends and stuff like that. I mean, honestly, you couldn't pay me enough to drive into the city, but
I agree with you there.
But I think that is very good. And I would also, as sort of an aside, but for people who are seniors, they should take advantage of the senior discount. And for residents around here, if they're seniors and aren't aware of it, they can go to the Arlington, this isn't for you, it's kind of for general information. They can go to the Arlington Heights Senior Center, and the staff there can help people with the application and the and they'll take your photo, because you have to have a photo of a certain size and all that to go in. So that is something. And then that $100 pass, from what I've read, will be $70 if somebody's in the right age bracket. But so I do thank you for that. But I do hope to, but I think probably my biggest disappointment in the way the scheduling is on a personal level is why there isn't, an express for the largest ridership stop. And I realize you still, not many people are still figuring out what their hybrid schedules or all the time in the city or all the time remote are, but I hope that is something that you'll continue to be looking at and as you go forward. But I do thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to listen to us and being willing to listen to everybody who is communicates with you, and I hope that they start to feel heard.
Sure, and that's something we're absolutely looking at. We've heard that feedback loud and clear, so we're definitely looking at that.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Bertucci.
Thank you. Again, thank you for being here. Can you turn to the slide that has the schedule on it, please? The Northwest schedule. Okay. Arlington Heights has more ridership than Palatine, is that correct?
Yeah, they're roughly equal. I believe that is correct. Yeah.
Okay. How many direct, maybe except for Clybourne, going inbound in the morning, how many stops from Palatine and then go right into the city, or maybe a stop at Clybourne? How many do you got inbound?
On this screenshot, there's 4.
How many for Arlington Heights?
There are 0 for Arlington Heights. Yeah.
Okay. How about going outbound? How many do you have from?
It's the same. It's a symmetrical schedule. They're about 30 minutes. It's the same. Yeah.
So you have none to Arlington Heights, but you have
Yeah.
3 or 4 to Palatine. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to speak a little bit more sterner than Trustee Labette and say I'm more than disappointed. I'm upset.
Sure.
Okay. And I speak and I don't take the train, but I represent the residents of Arlington Heights, and I've gotten a lot of calls, and I've been asked by a lot of them to speak to you sternly. Okay. Is that right? Palatine has 3 Ford Expresses going both ways.
Yeah, and again,
Arlington Heights has none.
this wasn't, like I say, just 2 points. That totally understand your frustration. I'm not diminishing this at all. Just the 2 points, just to clarify our thought process again. It's not necessarily that Palatine or Des Plaines are have some sort of quality. It's more that the group of stations in the zone-based system are roughly equal. So the zone base from Palatine to Harvard is roughly equal, actually a little more than Arlington Park to Des Plaines, and that was the.
I don't think that's a good way to measure it.
I agree, and I mean I understand what you're saying. And if you look at, for example, another line, just again another heavy ridership line, for example, the BNSF line, for example, which is similar setup, triple tracks for all of it. They have express trains at Congress Park because of some infrastructure and some loading. It doesn't necessarily mean that Congress Park is the busiest station on the Aurora line. It's just where the logical split is. Now, also for the comment of there are no express trains, there are express trains. I mean, I totally understand. Again, I'm not here to argue that point about the direct express trains to Arlington Heights, but there are express trains that go all the way to Des Plaines. They just make 3 extra stops before they hit Arlington Heights. And I think the travel time difference is about 4 to 6 minutes depending on the train time. So again, we did analyze the travel times before and after these changes, because the stops that the trains express to Des Plaines are a large savings versus either driving or taking the local, but it's something we are absolutely looking at in terms of making the schedule accommodating for all users.
Okay, so I'm going to speak frankly. Is Arlington Heights going to get some express trains, inbound
Like
and
I said,
outbound?
I don't want to give any expectations that we can't fulfill, but it's something we are looking at and absolutely studying. So.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Trustee Canty.
I want to make sure that the people who are frequent riders, I see a lot of them in the audience here. Some of them I ride the train with. I want to make sure that they get an opportunity to speak. But sure. I do hope you're hearing from the feedback you're getting from the board. It's a very frustrating feeling, right? As somebody who was a rider of that 6:38 train, right? 6:38 gets you in at 7:17, and that gives you time to stop at the coffee shop and then get to your office by a certain time. If you miss that one, you could catch the 6:46, right? And then the 6:58, and then there was a 7:06, and I could drop my kids off at 7 on the dot when daycare opened, and then catch the 7:16, right? So we've lost a lot of those options for people that live in this community, and I feel their frustration, not only because they've shared it with me, but because I experience it myself, and I know I shared that with you sure. on the call, and it's part of why you're here tonight. So I just hope that you guys are able to take in a lot of this feedback, and hopefully we can see some changes. But I do want to make sure that the people who have waited so patiently get an opportunity to share with you their thoughts and feedback while we have you here in person.
Okay.
Before I go to the audience, Mr. Ecklas.
Thank you, Mayor. One other point. I was just going to, again, thank you guys for coming here. We know you don't have to, and appreciate you listening to the feedback. One other point I was going to make that I didn't hear made yet was, you noted infrastructure, and I think that's a really important point. One of the reasons that Arlington Heights is the most popular stop, I would suggest, isn't just because we're the largest community, but this community has invested tens of millions of dollars in parking infrastructure, and then all of the police personnel to maintain that. And I understand completely the idea. I mean, I'm a civil servant, public policy person too. The need to experiment and see, well, can you get people to go to some of these other zones and look at this on a geographic basis? But the fact is, this community kind of has already invested a lot of money to get commuters in here, and has the infrastructure of personnel to make sure people aren't cheating on parking and so forth already. And when commuters are kind of forced other places, then our parking sales go down, and we lose the ability to maintain that infrastructure that's been built, that the system is dependent on, and that manpower to maintain it. And so that's just one point I want to make, that I think that's missing, is that there has been a significant investment by this community to support this line, and it's just something that ought to, in my mind, be emphasized. But thank you.
Trustee Labez.
Thank you. I would like to just piggyback off a comment from Manager Recklouse, and that is also not just the investment in the parking and all that, but also the transit-oriented development that we have built here. I mean, you just have to look out the window behind me, and you can see that this community has invested a lot to have that. And we also have a lot of people that travel here to go, not just live here and then work, and can live here without a vehicle, literally, but who also commute here just to go to our restaurants and our music and theater venues and so on. So, we embraced the call for transit-oriented development, so that's another reason why it's so important that the schedule work well here. And I just want to say, when I said without that 6:38, I can't get to my, to have to wait a 20, 30 minutes longer to get on, and I can't get to my office before 8. It's because I don't really want to have to get up any earlier than I already get up. So just to clarify that.
Sure.
I'm going to have to ask you to have a seat, and we've got at least a few audience members who would like to make comment. And so the first is Carrie Wolovec. Is it Gary or Carrie?
Carrie.
Okay.
I will also disclose that I'm a riding buddy of Trustee Canty's as well. And when she gets a text message from me, usually before 7 a.m., it has to do with Metra. And I'm sure she's shaking her head on the other line. I'm one of the riders. I live on the northern end of the village, so technically I should have two options to get downtown, either via the North Central service, where service is not rebounded, but I choose this because even though it's double the distance from my house, the service is still exponentially better. I do applaud the efforts that you as an agency are doing with the $100, the 10 rides, $10 fares that you've done during COVID on the app. Those are innovative. But with the schedule changes, and I understand the zone blocking, it's become a quality of life issue as well. Because I have to wake up 30 minutes earlier to make this new train, the 616, I don't get to see my daughter, who's 20 months old, more than 3 minutes to get her ready in the morning. I used to rely on a train that was 10, 15 minutes later. I also work for a Jewish communal faith-based institution. We have services at 8 a.m. I'm at Madison and Clark. On Monday when we were late, the services couldn't start till I got there because I met the communal requirement for services. Why? Because a freight train had to come through. It's the joke for the people who take the 6:59 here in the morning, is how late is it going to be? Every day it's late. Some days it's 2 minutes, some days it's 5, some days it's 10. No announcements, no nothing. We're asking, I'm sure I'm speaking for some of my riders, for some accountability for our loyalty to your service, especially during COVID. I'm downtown 4 to 5 days a week. And the lack of responsiveness, the lack of clarity, I know the ticket agent's going away because of machines, and I understand the logic of that too. But our agent has been doing things for years to try to say, hey, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. And she goes the extra mile when we're not getting it even from the emails or the apps. And we do want some of this service restored. I can emphasize that enough. It's made our lives a lot difficult. I used to wake up at 6, I'm waking up at 5:30 now. It's really hard. And for those of us who are still campaigning as loyalists to tell our friends who are some of my personal friends are moving north and northwest to take the train, the lack of responsiveness and foresight on some of this planning has made it harder to get even some of my friends to abandon their cars. And some of them ride this line, some of them ride the Milwaukee North. None of them will touch the North Central until the service is restored over there. But it's frustrating, and especially for those of us who have to drive 10 minutes north to the edge of the village, and then walk 10 minutes to my office at Madison and Clark too. It's really hard, and all we're asking is, yes, things happen. UP makes lives difficult. I get that. A lot of us get that. But better needs to happen, because otherwise a lot of us are going to keep being frustrated, and it will make us less likely as we advance our careers to be wanting to stay downtown or keep riding Metro. So please take that into, and also please restore our express trains.
Carrie, you did a great job of staying right at the 3-minute time limit. I don't know if you knew that there was a 3-minute time limit. I forgot to remind you, but you were right on time, and so thank you. Next is Carrie Miller, and Carrie, I will remind you that there is a 3-minute time limit, so hope you can do as good a job as the other Carrie.
I brought my phone, but I see there's a timer right there, so thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Miller, and I'm here representing St. Viator High School. And in the audience, I'm also joined by Cassandra McKenna, Daniel Kinney, Peter McLeod, who are members of the St. Viator Board of Trustees as well. We appreciate the opportunity to address the Metro concerns that we also have with the village and with members of Metro. We appreciate that you're here. And we want to talk about how the UP Northwest line affects the lives of our students and their families, actually. So I'm going to talk about Pam, who's a single mom. She lives in Algonquin, and she has a daughter. Her name is Caitlin, and she rides the train from eastbound, inbound at 7:14 a.m. And every day she takes this train, and she gets in at 7:39. And she gets to school by our St. Viator shuttle bus, and she gets there in plenty of time for classes to start at 8 o'clock. This single mom really relies on Metro to make sure that she is an alum and she gets the education that she really thinks that her daughter deserves. On the flip side, coming from the east side, from Park Ridge, Dr. Erica Mickelberg has to make the decision to send her daughter Abby, who's going to be a sophomore this fall, on either the 6:38 a.m. train or the 7:38 train. And neither one is ideal, because either she gets to school an hour early or she'll get to school 10 minutes late now. So pre-COVID, she was able to get to school. The train came in at 7:30. She got picked up by the St. Viator shuttle bus, plenty of time, an opportunity to get to school without too much time on the front end or being late to classes. So these students, prior to COVID, they commuted with confidence. I like the tagline, commuted with confidence. They had safe, reliable transportation, and they arrived at the appropriate amount of time before school. Not too soon, not too late. So now, pre-COVID, approximately 10% of our students utilize Metro to get to our school. And we were able to have transportation services from Arlington Heights to our school. Now that number is down to about 3%. And so obviously the partnership with Metro is vital to the continued growth at St. Viator, but more importantly to the continued growth and education of students who are not able to get to our school due to transportation constraints. This past year, St. Viator celebrated its 60th year being part of Arlington Heights and bringing a Catholic college preparatory education to young men and women in the surrounding towns. Our school brings in students from over 65 schools, and 1/3 of our students receive financial assistance. And so we are committed to diversity and solidarity and continually seek ways in which we can make St. Viator education available to all who seek it. And so we need your help, Metro, to bring back an arrival time of 7:30 to 7:45 so we can make sure our students can get to our classes on time and able to seek a St. Viatorian education when they want it. We're happy to sit down and discuss this with you further, or members of the board, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Carrie. And just so Metro knows, we do have another school that has commuter students, that's Christian Liberty Academy. I know that they have a lot of students that ride the rail, either from Chicago or from the west as well, to come here to Arlington Heights. So ditto for the comments that St. Vitus just made for Christian Liberty Academy as well. Those are the only two blue cards I have. Are there any other members of the audience that wish to address the board and Metra on this particular item? Right, seeing none. Go ahead, sir. Just give us your name if you would.
My name is Andy Bajoret. I've been an Arlington Heights resident since 2005. I want to thank Trustee Scaletta, Lebeds, and Canty. I think the core issues you guys encapsulated very well. We moved to Arlington Heights because of the walkability to Metra. So I think some of the issues about, well, zone this, zone that, are utterly irrelevant for Arlington Heights residents. I'm only walking to one zone, right? And I think, while I recognize, how early trustees Lebeds and Canty get up and go to work, like for slackers like me, you maybe want to get to work at 8:30. There's really only like one viable option on that board. And that's that 8:34, and it runs late all the time. If you look at, some of the other options, either you're taking those locals where they hit everything. It's 55 minutes. We're accustomed to having a lot of options that are 35 minutes. Pre-COVID. If you take a what do you got up there like that? 6:59, showing up, you're getting to work before 8 o'clock. That's not really an option. Well, I mean, you can, but, it's not useful. And then if you're looking at the other end of it, you're not getting into work until after 9:15. There's literally one decent option to get downtown for anybody who wants to be at their desk by 8:30. One. And, again, I think it was Trustee Scaletta that brought up the value of our property values. It's driven in part because of the accessibility that Arlington Heights has through Metra to downtown, through the expressways to downtown. And I think that was a really valuable point. And now if you've got one option, that's a problem. And I think that, the one other thing that I haven't really, I do agree. I also like that $10 daily pass, that $100 monthly pass is nice. But I think we're sort of missing the core issue. I think with Metra, you're not really competing with price for the residents of Arlington Heights. I mean, I like paying less. Don't get me wrong, but you're competing with the customer experience of working out of your house, and so you're competing with the convenience of working out of your house versus having one option to get downtown. And so, I think the reliability of trains coming on time is important. Having options to get downtown is, at least to me, is more important than the price reductions. There's been a lot of focus on the price reduction, but that doesn't drive my willingness my ridership to go downtown. I'm actually
Sir, give us your last thought, if you would.
Thank you. I'm less willing to ride with this schedule than I am. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? All right, seeing none. Anybody else on the board? Trustee Canty.
As a final comment, I want to thank you all for coming out and thank the members of the public. I know, Dan, you had to listen to me ask you a lot of questions and read you a lot of emails that I had received from members of the community before you came here. So I hope this won't be your last outreach to members of this community, and I hope that for members of the community, this won't be the last time that you yourselves reach out to Metra. They're putting themselves out there. They want to hear from you, so make sure that they do hear from you for all of those who are watching at home. Thank you.
And just echo that, I can personally attest that I know the leadership from Metra has heard our concerns, so that they are listening. By virtue of the fact that they are here in force tonight is representative of that fact. And so I very much appreciate your presence here tonight, your presentation. I know you've heard our concerns, and we would just very much appreciate an accommodation for and recognition of Arlington Heights as really the prominent community that it is, and the fact that it is the leader in ridership along the Northwest Line, and that we would get relief for our commuters going forward in the near future. And we very much appreciate your help in that regard. So thank you again for joining us tonight. Thank you. All right. That is the end of our recognitions and presentations. So we'll move on then to citizens to be heard. And we do have one individual who wishes to address the board on an item not on the agenda. That's Mark Edelman. And Mark, I know you're aware of the 3-minute time limit, so why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mark Edelman, 511 North Yale, very close to Arlington Park. I'll just say everything that they said about Arlington Heights, we'd like to have at Arlington Park too. Used to have several express stops. But the reason I'm here tonight is to try to make a request to the board for information around the status of the various flood control projects, both within the combined sewer area and outside the combined sewer area. How many have not yet started? How many have started? How many have been completed? Those are my basic questions, along with how many sewer rebates have been done annually for each of the years since the flood, as well as how many overhead sewers have been installed and approved over this 11-year period since the flood occurred. Those are my questions. The reason I'm bringing this up today is because we're faced with a potentially major infrastructure project coming up, and the amount of cement that will be poured at the current spot of Arlington Heights to complete that infrastructure project is going to be very large, and at the same time, the amount of open space to absorb groundwater and rain will be reduced substantially, just by the construction of what's going to happen there. And so I think before that project, if that project gets underway, you know, myself, along with other people who live in the village, want to know, okay, that's great, but what is going to happen to all that water that's going to be displaced? That won't be absorbed, and the cement is going to cause a lot of runoff, and we've already got issues going on 11 years that have yet to be resolved. And so that's why I'm bringing it up now, before anything gets started or put in writing later this fall.
Right.
Thank you
we
very
appreciate that, Mr. Edelman. And Mr. Eckles, I know that would be a very lengthy report if you gave all that information, but.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm happy to talk with you afterwards, but, you know, just real quick for the sake of people that may be listening at home, the 3 biggest projects on our list, the Cypress, Greenbrier Roanoke, and Berkeley Hints, are either done or underway. All generally supported by grant funding as well, I'll point out. We've had a number of neighborhood level projects done as well. We just received word from Congresswoman Schakowsky's office that they are pledging a 75% funding for the Chicago and Race project. So there's been significant progress made on stormwater over the last 5 years. As far as the racetrack development, regardless of what happens there, it will be held to very high standards. The new MWRD standards are very strict in terms of what can be built, ensuring that any stormwater runoff that's created has to be dealt with on site. It's something that we take very seriously in terms of as the enforcers of that. And so, happy to speak with you more details, but there has been substantial progress that we're very proud of, and it is something we still continue to take very seriously.
Mr. Edelman, you're going to have to get up into the microphone.
I was just going to ask for the 3 major projects that are completed or almost completed. Yeah. Were those all in the combined sewer area, or were they outside the combined sewer area?
They were outside the sewer area. What we decided and talked about at the board level was the most cost-effective means for combined sewer is the overhead sewer program, and that enhancement in the local rebate was increased to 75%. And we're encouraging that at all times. We've had some success. I still personally hope that we continue to have more, because there is funding available for that program. And that's the most cost-effective way for combined sewer properties to flood-proof themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Edelman. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on an item not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll close the citizens to be heard portion of the agenda and move on to old business. And we do have a couple of items to report out from our meeting from earlier this evening. And the first motion to be reported out is by Trustee Canty.
Thank you, Mayor. I move now, as I did then, to concur in the mayor's appointment of Brad Katz for appointment to the Special Events Commission with a term ending April 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Canty, seconded by Trustee Grassi. Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Brad, we apologize for making you wait, but I know you probably learned a lot about Metra tonight, and so please come forward and we'll make it official. And if you would just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your full name,
I, Brad Katz,
having been appointed to the Special Events Commission
having been appointed to the Special Events Commission
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office according
To the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities. Sorry.
Congratulations, Brad. We know you
Thank
well.
you. Thank you very much.
Come forward if you would, Brad. I would like to present you with a village logo pin that all of our elected and appointed board members wear proudly as a representative of this community. So congratulations. Thank you very much. To do that. And also you need to sign your oath with the village clerk. So we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one other item to report out tonight, and that was by Trustee Bertucci.
I would recommend that the Village Board of Trustees recommend to the Liquor Commissioner the issuance of a Class B and a Class T liquor license to Richriston LLC, DBA Liddy Liquors, located at 1002 West Dundee Road.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Canty. Questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, congratulations, gentlemen. Again, thanks for your patience. Sorry to make you wait. Good luck to you. Move on in the agenda then to the consent agenda. Are there any members of the board who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Any members of the board or the audience wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? We'll go back to the board. I will be voting no, Becky, on consent legal C. Are there any other members of the board who wish to vote no or pass on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee Lebeds. Roll call.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Lebeds?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Canty?
Yes.
Trustee Grassi?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Move on in the agenda to the approval of bids, the 2022 website rebuild project. Mr. Recklaus.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the strategic priorities for 2022 to 2023 is to enhance communication with our residents, and one of the goals that we have is to move forward and update our website. Our website, things move fast in the world of websites, and we're certainly due for an update, both to make it more mobile friendly and to just make it easier to find information. And these days, more and more things obviously are occurring online, not just information seeking, but actual business. So our communications and outreach coordinator, Avis Mead, is here to talk about what the plan is and answer some questions.
Welcome, Avis.
Hi, thank you. So we'll just go ahead and dive in. So a little bit expanding about our website. It's pretty much our most important communications resource. In 2021, we had almost 1.2 million page views by 417,000 users. When we have emergency information, when we post agendas, you can see actually our top pages up there for 2021. Outside of COVID, the rest of that list is pretty much unchanged year after year. People want to make their payments online. They want to find jobs, agendas and minutes. They want to figure out how they can contact us and you, permits and guides, and then events. So this is just just an outline to kind of share the importance of this website and why we need one. Our current website is experiencing ongoing outages, as you can see through my Outlook inbox for the past several months. We get alerts whenever there's an outage, and that's when we get one of those emails. You can see we've had several, some significant. I know in 2019, before I came here, it was 5 days without a website. As recently as January, it was over 1 day we had an outage. On the 6th of this month, we actually had an outage for about 6 hours. So we're still dealing with these ongoing concerns. So we went to an RFP a couple months ago in early spring, and we had 3 vendors submit. Revise is our preferred vendor, and they have the best pricing structure. I'll get into why they are our preferred vendor. And here you can see the 3 RFP results. Revise came in at $53,900 with annual hosting fees of $8,900 per year after the first year. Just to put that into perspective, our current vendor is currently more than that. Then the next one was CityBase, who their prices are not comparable. And then the next one was Plantaria Media. However, Revise had much more experience, and so I can kind of dive into that a little bit here too. So a little bit about Revise. Founded in 1995, they are an innovator for local government websites. They're considered a leader in the field. Today they have 2,500, actually a little bit more, county, state, municipal, and government agency websites, including these local websites that are our neighbors. I kind of included some of the imagery here so you can see. I've also spoken to the communications people that were kind of involved with those projects, and they had positive feedback about Revise and working with them as well. A little bit more. So their design process for us would provide unlimited revisions in the design process. They've been very flexible with the people that they've worked with so far. Something that we liked is that we're allowed to choose the designer. They kind of give us the designer and what they've done, and we're allowed to pick who works on our website. So we can kind of customize the look that we're going for as a village, because it really represents who we are, and it's our front-facing representation. So it's important to have the look that you're seeking. Within the actual website, we're allowed to create our own look and feel. We can incorporate our village brand. They also provide tailored designs. So as you can see, those are 2 different versions of news items on the top. They look different. What do we want? We can kind of tailor it and customize it to see what we want and make sure that they can provide it. And then additionally, they provide upgrades to our current calendar. They provide sub-calendars, and a neat option is that you can actually export our calendars to your personal calendar. So if you wanted to put all of your meetings on your personal calendar, or all the events, whatever calendars we had, you could just do that with like one button and just export it. So that's a pretty great feature. Another important communication piece is our social media reach. We have a very healthy social media reach. We use it for alerts, updates, pictures, community, and just everything. So some people say that they don't have social media. They don't have Facebook. How are they supposed to see what's on there? So a new component that Revise offers is to have our social media feed actually on our homepage. So we can say check up for updates on our Facebook page or on our homepage, and then that kind of saves on staff time. Personally, I know it's a lot easier to update weather, updates at an event as opposed to going onto a website and making that update. It's a lot easier to use social media, so integrating those is really important. So that's another exciting feature that they provide. Another one is mobile responsiveness. So basically, in an increasingly mobile world, mobile responsiveness is a priority. Here are 3 examples that they gave, kind of what the desktop looks like in the background and how it's responsive on mobile. One not so great example is ours. So we have as you can see on the left-hand side, you have the desktop of our home banner, but then you can see what that looks like when it's shrunk down onto mobile. It doesn't, it's not responsive. And as you can see here, from January to May of this year, 61,000 users, more than 50% of the users to our website have accessed it through mobile. So it's really important that we look good on mobile, that everything's responsive, that we're modernized, that things are working well despite the tablet or the screen that you're looking at. You're going to get the right information instead of like segmented information like on tier day. So the next one is improved search bar results. So when people do get to our website, they search. And one of the main ways that they do that is the actual search bar. So one of the features that they have, which is excellent, is, well, when you kind of break down the analytics, people visit our website for the same general reasons. 90% of people are going to be looking at the same pages for the same reasons: water bill, paying a bill, employment, a ticket, pay a ticket, overnight parking. So sometimes when you have websites like an outdated website with a lot of information that's outdated and old on it, bad search results come up, and it doesn't really help anybody. So it just generates an angry phone call most of the time. So what we can do is actually customize what the majority of people are searching for. We can get that list, and we can customize which pages they are then presented with. So that's going to save angry phone calls. It's going to save angry residents. So this is a huge, huge improvement. Next one. Another really great thing that they're focused on at Revise is ADA compliance and language options. So not only do they just have the standard compliance, but I thought these features were really cool. They had, for people who are colorblind, they actually are able to change the hyperlink colors so that they can recognize them better. You can change the contrast, you can change grayscale, you can underline all of the links, ununderline all of the links, whatever you need to do, increase contrast. And I really thought that that was like really great for accessibility. As far as languages, we can use Google Translate drop-down menu and select any languages. They also offer like kind of like a highlight at the top of the screen for languages that are more commonly spoken. You know, that generally we have that information, and the census will help with that as well. The next one, basically a lot of stuff has happened since 2016 in websites. So these are some options. These aren't necessarily things that we do have to use, but they are options, and they're helpful. So we could have a request portal through Revise that allows the person who submits it and the person who receives it to kind of track the process, which would be very helpful with community management of community event management. Because right now it's kind of a struggle because we kind of have to all email each other, and then somebody gets left off the thread, and you kind of have to figure out where they get, you know, where they are. And this would be very helpful in that process. There's also public service request features similar to our current See-Click Fix. So I don't know if we would necessarily need it, but we can explore it as a potential option because they offer it. They also offer an RFP portal, which would streamline our current manual process. So RFPs right now, when they're posted online, we have to like create a reminder in our calendar to go back in when it's closed and remove it off of the internet. So this is something that would automate that process and make it a lot easier just for staff and just streamlining everything. We also would be having the option of e-notify, which would allow us to send emails and like text messages through a text to sign up option. We have constant contact now, but we could always look into these things as additional resources to reach more people. They also offer something called microsites. So basically, there's sites that live within our site. This is something that could be used for Discover Arlington. We could have one for each department. The innovations that Revise has and the things that they offer above and beyond what we currently have are very difficult to describe, but there's a lot of them, and they're all searchable, which is also really good. So it's not like they're different websites where you'd search for one here and you wouldn't get the results here. Since they're microsites and they're within the same one, you can search and and all the information you're looking for would come up, just in case people don't know where they're actually supposed to be searching. One of the best offerings of Revise is a customizable URL. Current/ if I want to share, let's say, the police department page with a resident, I have to tell them to please visit https:// and then that entire phrase. It's very long, it's very lengthy, it's hard to put in a letter, it's hard to ask people to visit that website. It's hard with construction projects because it's very cumbersome. With the new website, we would be able to have customizable URLs, so we can ask people to please visit vah.com/police. Sign up with our emails at vah.com/emails. Connect with us. Sounds of Summer. And we can then use the more commonly visited website pages according to the analytics to then come up with customizable URLs that we can share with people and try to transfer people from paper to digital. So this is like a key factor. Selfishly, on the admin side of things, it's a lot easier to edit on the back end. It's very user-friendly. It's much easier for staff to edit and manage. We don't have to adjust photos. That would be automatic. And so we would also have a history of all of the edits made before, which would actually allow us to have seasonal options for pages. So instead of recreating content for every season, we could just upload the last edit from winter, and then that would be like the new page for roads, or just as an example. So that's just some of the innovation that they've kept up with. In addition, one of the more important parts when your website's not working is what do you do? One of the wonderful things that they offer is that would be able to personally notify their staff person of choice if we had an issue with our website, which would be very, very helpful. We can also select the level of priority that we feel our issue warrants. If we have the extreme emergency situation, they guarantee a response within 1 hour. That is a significant improvement over our current situation. So that's very helpful. I hope that I've kind of went through everything here, so it is with all of these things in mind that staff recommends that we move forward with Revise as the village's new website provider for an anticipated launch in fall of 2022. Do we have any questions?
Well, Ava's very nice presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just want to make it clear to residents who are either with us or watching tonight that we are doing this not just because of the lack of reliability, the outages that we've had, but because of a desire, a longstanding desire on the part of this board to revamp the website and especially the mobile app and everything associated with it in terms of its design, its ease of navigation, its user friendliness, and all those associated issues. And so it's all those things that you covered in your presentation, but I just want to make it clear that it's not just the outages, but it's the whole package that we're looking for from a new vendor to improve in this area. So thank you again for your presentation. Trustee Canty.
So I echo the mayor's comments. Thank you, Avis. I'm sure, as many of my fellow trustees do, I feel seen with this presentation. I am so excited. Randy, we are about to embark where I do not have to ask you when can we get a better website, because it's happening. I feel it. I feel it coming in the future. This is very exciting. And I guess my only question, and I think that you probably have a good answer for this. Revise is so far outside of the price of the other two, and it seems amazing. And so as a skeptic and somebody who watches her personal pennies, it makes me nervous. Are we about to jump out of the frying pan and into the fire with Revise, or are we good? Like, why was there such a difference in those RFPs?
Sure. So just across the board right now in technology, it's really hard to staff. So not all of the vendors that usually provide this type of thing submitted their request for proposal. When I did a survey of surrounding communities, I'd say out of about 30 communities, they all used the same 3. We only heard from one of those, and that was Revise. And they guaranteed or like confirmed that they feel confident with the timeline. And I think that that's just something to keep in mind. In the memo, I kind of went into it a little bit too. We have like built in a little extra cushion on the timeline with our current vendors. Contract, just in case we run into any IT staffing issues with them, so we're keeping that in mind, but they were definitely one of the preferred vendors just because of their experience. I've spoken to all of the other communicators and people who have worked on these other websites, and no one's perfect. No website provider is perfect. Sometimes there might be a delay in service, but in no way was it a negative thing that they reported. So I'm being a little cautious when it comes to the timeline, just to build in a little bumper room, just in case we need it. But I think that that's why we didn't see the other like common vendors submit, because they're just a little overstaffed or understaffed and overworked right now.
Mr. Ricklex, go ahead.
If I just could add one personal note, I happened to have lunch today with the village manager of Buffalo Grove. They were with our current web vendor, recently switched to Revise. Couldn't be more happy with it, and we're comparing and contrasting kind of the service between the two, and they were very pleased. And I think that was one, and Avis or Diana can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things we're really looking for is a firm that works with a lot of municipalities. So there's as much as we like to think of ourselves as special and better and different, there's nothing we would throw at them that would be something they hadn't handled before many, many, many times. So
Thank you. That's very helpful, and I look forward to the day when we can launch it to the community.
And they're definitely an established vendor, and what we're seeing a little bit with what Randy was saying, the less established vendors are kind of in a process of being bought up by larger companies right now. So we wanted to kind of focus on and hopefully go with one of these bigger vendors like Revise.
Okay. Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for hearing us, as Trustee Canty said. So when we redid the website last time, the first day I went to it and all of a sudden I couldn't look at the agendas because they wouldn't recognize an iPhone. This website's going to recognize all phones, right?
Yes, it will, and tablets and desktops. It's very mobile responsive. We also made sure that it's very, it incorporates very well with Tyler and any sort of like tools that we would have with the ERP. We made sure that that was part of our RFP to make sure that they work together. There's no reason that should happen ever, and I'm sorry that happened ever, but that's not an issue at this point in time. A lot of things have changed since 2016 as well. It's going to work on iPhones.
Okay. Well, Ava, should kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because my next question was ERP. So
there you go.
There you go. You talked a lot about the design in the beginning of your presentation. So I would imagine that our design is going to change over time because we're looking at a different brand. Will they continue to update the design, or is it a one-time design?
So every 4 years, when we renew our contract with them, there's in the 4th year a refresh is included. So we would be able to update the design at that point in time at the end of our 4 years. Now, when you say the brand, I know that there is another branding project that's not part of this. We're looking to kind of hopefully match up those timelines as much as possible to incorporate that into this. And so our goal is hopefully to have it all sort of cohesive for the 4 years, and then at the end of our 4-year contract, we would get the refresh.
Well, this can't be done until the brand is identified and approved and we're moving forward, right?
at this point in time, everything's lining up, that's fine, yeah.
We're working on, there's aspects of these things we can work on in parallel, but the obviously the finishing branding will be ending around that same time, and while the guts of this and the legal aspect can be worked on the website, obviously the final branding can be put into effect as the website goes live.
Something that I can add to that is that we are working closely with.
Is your microphone on?
Something that, oh, I don't think it is. Okay, something that I can add is that we're working closely with Planning Community Development on the branding initiative. So we're monitoring the timelines, as Avis and Randy mentioned. So we're in a good trajectory if things keep moving along. But we've also built in some additional time for the new website should we need to expand for a couple months. So if we're right there, we need a couple more months with the branding discussion, we could potentially just delay the website, knowing that we'll get there. But we want to make sure that we can incorporate the new design into the website.
So while we might start the hosting immediately, the design element part of it might be later?
How would you characterize that, Diana?
So we can work on the timing issue of that. So we can work behind the scenes, and then Avis, we can talk with Revise about keeping that last minute until we're ready to go live.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can do all of the work on the back end, create the mega menus, create the pages, figure out what pages we're bringing over, what pages we're not, because we have a lot of content on there we don't need to bring over. And then before it launches, then they would apply the colors and the labeling and the logos and different things like that. That's the visual representation, but it's not where the majority of our time and work and effort would go in this particular project. But it would cohesively it would be good to have them all together and work together. And I think that that's what Diana was saying, is that if we do need to somehow delay this project to make sure that it's incorporating our new brand, we have that built into the timeline.
So when does this agreement start?
This agreement would start as soon as we need it to, but our current website vendor, our website is done on October 25th, and we have 2 extensions of 3 months as an option.
Okay, but we could move our service forward without unveiling an entire new website immediately.
No, we would, if we were running into issues, timing issues, we would extend the contract with our current vendor, our current provider.
But we would do all the back end work. We're not going to launch this website until the new brand is established, is kind of what we're saying. But it's not like we have to stop working on it. It'll all be teed up and ready to go. But if you need another month to determine the brand, then we would just delay the launch a month.
So we'll stay in a bad marriage until we find someone better?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And Trustee Scaletta, that's tied to the contract provisions. We built in the extensions. It was really smart of Avis to ask for, we didn't want a month or year long. We wanted a shorter period of time. So that's why she got the 2-3 month extensions, should we need
I think
it.
it's fantastic. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're not, that we as a board aren't rushing into something and telling you go, when there's all of these kind of outstanding things. And I really do know that you guys are talking about this and working on this, but I need to understand it so that I can vote on it.
Sure.
So will there be penalties for outages with this new company?
So as far as the new company, they have nearly a 100% uptime rate. The redundancy is a very different situation than our current one. Recently, when we found out that there was an outage for several days in January, it was because there was a fire in their server location. Even though they had a backup server location, it was the same location. So there was a fire there, and so we didn't have they didn't have the redundancy that they had promised. And so our new website will have 2 state-of-the-art redundancy facilities in Illinois and Michigan, so no fire can hopefully affect both. And then, so we would have that kind of backup. I don't foresee any kind of the those outages that we've been seeing regularly with our current vendor as being an issue with our new vendor. And neither did anybody else that I asked from the local.
Well, we didn't expect what we.
Absolutely. So luckily, we did have our IT department have a very detailed list of requirements from lessons learned, I believe, from our current vendor, that we didn't know that either, that we didn't expect that from them, and that has been built in.
Sure, I'm sure when we said, do you have a backup, they said yes, and we didn't say, well, is it in the same spot?
A lot has changed since 2016 when it comes to technology and local government websites.
Who will physically update the calendar for the village?
So currently, that job is a little bit split. It's mostly our admin through the village manager's office. So I don't see, like, new allocations of staff time and responsibilities haven't been decided yet, but I don't foresee that changing, or if it does, we'll work it out.
Okay, but it'll be, even if it's multiple people, it'll be the same multiple people.
Yes.
Okay. And then kudos on the update on the ADA and the language. I think that's really important because we have so many people in this village, and people who visit the website, they want to be heard. They want to be able to go on, and they want to get the same information everybody else does. And so they want that information. And so I'm glad that you brought that to us. The last question, Randy, we had nothing budgeted in technology fund for this?
So we moved this project up. So what we did was, this was supposed to be a project in a future year. Avis has been with us for 10 months now, and we knew that this was very important to the board, so we were able to move it up to this fiscal year. So that's why we need a budget amendment.
Okay, and so, because previously, did we talk about it at CIP? Because we've talked about this.
Yes, this was going to be a 2023 project, and after getting feedback from the board last fall, and then when this was one of the projects that we decided to program with the budget surplus from 2021.
Right. That's probably where I remember hearing about it. Avis, you've only been here 10 months?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Take it as a compliment that it feels like you've been here for years.
Oh, great.
Thank you for all the efforts that you've made since you've been here. I have no other questions and ready to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Second.
Well,
is that not your motion?
Sorry.
Do you want me to make the motion?
Well, let's hear from Trustee Lebed.
I agree.
Thank you. I won't be long because Trustee Scaletta asked most of the questions I had, but I do want to thank you very, very much for bringing this to us tonight and for the great presentation. I have to say, when you got to the screen where it showed the comparison of our website, and when you try to look on it at the mobile site, it hit close to home, because last week when I got the text from Arlington Alert about Sounds of Summer, and I clicked on the link, and you know what happens, it brings you to this half a website, then you have to turn your phone every which way so you can see what the schedule is. So yes, this is going to be so much better. Thank you very much, and thank you for moving this up to this year. I was going to ask about the relationship with ERP, so thank you, Trustee Scaletta, for asking, and I'm glad to know that is already in consideration. And so I guess my only question then is, at what point do you think we're going to be talking more about branding at our level?
There's been, at the staff level, I know that it's been a busy process. There were some check-ins with the department head team just last week, and I don't know, Diana, do you have any further updates on that schedule? Charles?
Yeah, so we've been going around with the consultants on a series of logos and refining the logos and taglines and colors, and we tested that internally with some different groups, one being the department heads. We've given that feedback today to the Springboard marketing design firm, and we've asked them to come up with a few more. We're being very selective. So we're not there yet with the actual logo that we're really comfortable with presenting to the board. And then also after that, we would then test that, going back to the focus groups that they talked to early on. So we'd test that logo before kind of unveiling it, officially. So We're probably, a month to 6 weeks away from presenting something, to the board, at least in your packet, and then testing it with those focus groups, and then taking that feedback and refining it. So I don't see an issue with the timeline that was referenced here, and it'll be, perfect to dovetail into that with a rollout.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Thanks.
Anybody else? We do have two recommendations here. Can we do them both in one motion?
Yes, you can, Mayor.
Okay, so just, John, if you would take a look at that recommendation, we've got two parts of it.
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right. I would move that the village board authorize the village manager execute a contract with Revise LLC for the redesign of the village's website with a total amount not to exceed $80,600 for the next 4 years, with $53,900 due in the first year and $8,900 of annual hosting costs for the next 3 years from the village's technology fund account number 625-0601-553.20-39. And I would also recommend that the village board approve the attached ordinance amending the 2022 budget to increase the technology fund data processing services with the same account number.
Second.
By $53,900.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Scaletta, seconded by trustee Canty. Any further questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Mr. Edelman, gotta come forward.
One quick question. I think I heard you say that the website would be launched this fall, but I also know that the potential situation at Arlington Park or whatever it might become is likely to not be finalized at that point. So I'm just wondering about timing. Like, if you don't know if that deal's going through, or if you don't know that, if the deal hasn't been signed off on, is that going to be totally not part of the website, and we would have to wait 4 years to start that branding? I'm just asking about a question of timing.
Yeah, no, they're separate entities. That's another development that we would treat as any development in our approval process, and it may appear on the website at some point in one form or another, but their timing is not related. So we do have a motion and a second. Any further comments from the audience? Roll call.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Canty?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Lebeds?
Yes.
Trustee Grassi?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Again, Avis, nice job. Diana, nice job. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, we do have one other new business item. That's or a couple other, actually two new business items. One is a request for sign variation by the property located at 85 West Algonquin Road. Is the petitioner present? Why don't you come forward? And just tell us what's your name and what you're looking to do here.
My name's Robbie Whitehead. I'm with Olympic Sign Company out of Lombard. 40-year-old sign company, do a lot of good work in your town, so thank you. We're proposing just a illuminated set of channel letters for American Community Bank facing I-90. Simplistic, kind of blends in the area nicely. Nothing out of the ordinary of what's already there and the surrounding property, so just trying to get some exposure for a new business coming in that building.
Okay, we appreciate it. Mr. Perkins?
Yes, to do that, they do need two sign variations. One, to add a second wall sign where only one wall sign is allowed on the top of the building. And then obviously for the size of the sign, because that sign is not permitted. So the property is in the southwest quadrant of Arlington Heights Road and the tollway. There is one existing sign on the top of the building kind of facing southeast. For a dermatology business that's in that building, and this for the community bank would be on the kind of southwest facing facade, this facade here facing the tollway. It's done very nicely. It's a single channel lettered. This shows the existing sign and the proposed sign. So staff had no issues with this. The intent of the code is to allow signage on the building, but not have, lots of signs on every level of the building, and limit it to kind of major tenants in that building based on, the landlord and what kind of lease that they sign. So this would have the second sign, and staff recommended approval, and so did the design commission. And so that's the recommendation to the village board.
All right, thanks, Charles. Questions or comments or a motion? Trustee Scaletta.
Well, it's good to see more businesses coming to South Arlington Heights, and I reviewed all the materials, including the Design Commission minutes, and I would move to concur with the Design Commission recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck. Any further questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, congratulations. Sorry to make you wait so long.
Is
but
what
thanks
it
for your
is. Thank you.
patience.
Thank you so much.
All right, good luck.
And Mayor, we'll have the ordinance approving that will be on your next agenda in 2 weeks.
Okay, you understand that, so they can't,
Yeah.
they can't put it up
Final
until-
approval will be by ordinance at your meeting on the 5th.
Okay, so you gotta wait 2 weeks to put it up, right?
You cannot get a permit tomorrow.
Right.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, one other new business item, that's a proposed ordinance regarding nuisance hotels. Mr. Recklaus.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be efficient with this and cover some ground. We've seen a pretty significant increase in calls for service at some hotel locations in South Arlington Heights Road. This has been an issue that's been under discussion for the past several months between the police department, fire department, health department, and building and life safety department and planning department. 2 hotels in particular over a 5-year period saw an increase in 88 calls for service per year to 484. That goes through 2021. We've seen a 67% increase in calls for service in 2022 over 2021. So this has gotten pretty frequent. Officers also observed safety violations within the hotels. This has been a very significant drain on police and fire resources in recent years. Anyone who speaks to our rank and file police officers and firefighters, it's what they're dealing with every day. And staff really believes, upon looking at this, that additional action, oversight, prevention can be taken by hotel management to enhance public safety and reduce the need for these services. It's important to point out that this is not something endemic to all of our hotels. However, we believe we need to deal with this in a very fair-handed way because we don't want to have situations where you're transferring a problem from one hotel to the other. So some other area communities, such as Hoffman Estates and Schaumburg, have recently also adopted ordinances that curb what we're calling nuisance behavior at their hotel motels. We want to hold our operators accountable for security in their facility. If we're seeing frequent and disproportionate problems occur, we want to be fair-handed and give everyone their due process. And we're seeing the use of hearing processes versus the court system, and looking at generally having additional baseline security requirements for hotels, motels. So what is the process that we're proposing, and what is this laid out? So, there were a number within the ordinance. You can see there's a number of different activities that would constitute what we're calling nuisance activities. And these are some examples of them. Some of them are more serious than others. More serious ones we're characterizing as aggravated nuisance activities. So if you have 3 or more nuisance incidents, or 2 aggravated incidents, or 5 or more documented alleged incidents within a 180-day period, you could be declared a nuisance hotel. So I want to talk about what is a documented alleged incident. A documented alleged incident is something that we see all too frequently there, where a crime occurs and there's evidence that a crime occurred. A window was broken, a car is damaged, someone is assaulted, but then and there's evidence of that, but then the parties decline to press charges. And in those situations, it's very difficult because, but we know that this is an event that occurred, and so it's part of an environment there that where we don't have to wait for, given kind of our court system or folks not pressing charges, we don't have to wait for that to play out and for it to be a conviction. And these are things that there's a process laying out. It's not something that would be done lightly. It would have to be documented well and confirmed by the chief of police to be an alleged incident. So one of the most important parts of this is, again, the village doesn't want to fine people. We don't want to have penalties for people. We really want to just work out these issues. Is once we see that a property is at risk after 2 nuisance incidents, 1 aggravated incident, or 2 alleged incidents within that period, we have a required meeting between the village, the police department, and the operator to get into a voluntary abatement agreement. Again, the vast majority of our hotels, we're having these kinds of conversations anyways, when we have far less incidents than this. But for some where these are problems, we want to have something where there's some accountability. And they understand that, this is going to be the easier way to go, is to enter in an abatement agreement, because what's coming next, if you continue to have problems, there's going to be some penalties coming. So if the nuisance declaration threshold is met after that process, a hearing would be scheduled and a notification would go out. And the village would bring the action before an administrative adjudication hearing officer. An evidentiary hearing would occur, and an abatement order would be issued. And so these would be required updates in addition to potential penalties, just like we do for other administrative adjudication actions. So what are some of the possible penalties? Fines of up to $750 per incident, reimbursement of any extraordinary costs incurred by the village, the implementation of new security measures if we find that there's some sort of gap, and the most draconian of these would be the temporary closure of a facility for up to 180 days or the revocation of a license. And obviously those would be situations if we just had repeated issues and we could find no relief. The chief of police may also institute an emergency closure of the facility if they find that there is an immediate threat to the public safety or welfare for up to 60 days. And again, that would be subject to a public hearing process and would be something that would be pretty extreme. It's not something that would be done lightly. The other aspect of this is all hotels would be required to install certain basic security measures prior to January 1st, 23, or when their current license expires. They include things like cameras and monitors at entrances and exits, continuous digital surveillance 24/7 of all registers, checkout stands, interior hallways, lobbies, etc. Artificial lighting sufficient to identify activities in individuals and appropriate personnel that would be at these stations that could monitor these systems regularly. So we're recommending discussion and feedback on the draft ordinance tonight. We'd love to hear what you all have to say about it, and for you to give us direction and if appropriate, recommendation of an approval, amending Chapter 14 of the Municipal Code regarding nuisance hotels. One thing I did want to point out is, we're happy to answer any questions, is Trustee Bertucci did ask a question, and it led to a conversation between me and Village Attorney Passman about one wording change that may make things more clear. And I don't know if you want to just identify that. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Manager Reckhoff. Good evening, everybody. I know it's a concern that was raised about the definition of hotel authority. And if you have the draft ordinance in front of you, it's the new provision 14-201 subsection C. This ordinance was drafted as we worked on it with staff, trying to draw from best practices, not only for hotel regulations, but also general nuisance property ordinances that are in effect in a lot of other communities. There's a reference in the definition of hotel authority, words tenant, guest, and visitor. I think those probably got snuck in here from one of the broader nuisance property ordinances that may not belong. It's not our intent to make it the responsibility of just your ordinary guests at a hotel to be responsible for maintaining the hotel as a proper place of business, or to punish the hotel if it's a guest that doesn't stop someone from doing something wrong. So if you're inclined, whether tonight to adopt the ordinance, we're perfectly comfortable. I think it's our mutual recommendation. We remove the words tenant, guest, visitor from that definition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Passman. Anything else from the staff?
No, sir.
Okay. Questions from the board? Trustee Bertucci.
First of all, Randy, staff, thank you for getting this through. As many on the board and staff know, I did 2 ride-alongs recently. And first of all, Deputy Chief Hansel, you have professional men and women on your force. I was proud to ride along with them. And what I saw there was abominable. It was at some of those motels. And so I totally support this. It's interesting, if you could put that list back up, Randy, of what constitutes, go back to the beginning, what constitutes that one. Thank you. I dare say, almost embarrassed to say that in just 2 ride-alongs, we were brought to those motels for a few of those issues. And then within a week before, a week after, I heard of calls for some of those issues. So long overdue. So with that being said, so as not to drag this out any further, I would like to make a motion. And Randy, if you could just go back and throw that motion up, I appreciate it. To recommend approval of this ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Municipal Code regarding nuisance hotels with the correction and removal under Section 14.201, which is the definitions C, hotel authority, and the removal of tenant, guest, and visitor. Is that right?
Yeah, from our perspective on that issue, yes, Trustee Bertucci.
All right, motion by Trustee Bertucci. Is there a second?
I'm not quite prepared to second. I think I'm extremely
just
close,
brings
but to
discussion.
move the discussion along, I will second it.
Okay, seconded by Trustee Canty.
But
Do
I
you have
did.
questions?
Yeah. So I just want us to be aware. I recognize this is a hardship too on the potential penalties to some of our hotel providers, hotel motel providers, and the expense that they will have to go through to meet some of these new requirements. But I'm also really mindful of what we are asking of our police and fire departments. And I think that we ask them to do a lot in this community to keep all of us safe. And so I am extremely, I understand the positions of everybody here, right? I want to make things easier for our police and fire departments to try and control the things that we can control. But I am also mindful of the potential impact to some of our hoteliers who may not be nuisance hotels or considered nuisance hotels, but would still have to go through this expense. And so I don't think any of us take this decision lightly. I think I do err towards the safety of our community and supporting our police and fire departments in this regard.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you go back to that screen where you had the incidents again? That one, no, forward one. Yeah, right there. I thought I picked up on something, because on the report that you gave us, it talks here, unless I'm reading it wrong, once 2 nuisance incidents, 1 aggravated. Here we've got 3 or more and 2 aggravated. Was it updated and I just didn't get it? Because it says here, right above where the fines start and the reimbursement of.
What I think you may be looking at, Trustee Schwingbeck, is 3 or more incidents, or 2 aggravated, or 5 or more alleged. That's for a nuisance declaration. You are notified that you are at risk of becoming a nuisance hotel after 2 nuisance instances, 1 aggravated, or 2 alleged instances. Is that what you're possibly referring to?
Yeah, I guess, when I read through this, and I read through it a couple of times, we're really focusing on not all of our hotels here. And I know we're trying to write this as a general nuisance policy, but we're really looking at a few hotels.
Yes. I mean, we broadly, we're not seeing widespread issues at our hotels, but we do have a couple where we're seeing, repeated issues. And I did speak with one hotel operator today, because we did share this with Meet Chicago Northwest, who shared it with the hotel operators. And I did speak to one today, and they indicated all of the security measures that are listed here are things that they already have in effect.
Right. And when I read through this, I guess the thing that, and I read it a couple of times to try and figure out what my thoughts were here. When we're trying to correct a problem at a couple of hotels, and I rode around not twice, but once, and we circled a couple of particular hotels 3 times that evening. I read through this and I said, are we being too lenient? Do we need to go after them harder? I mean, we're trying to correct a situation here, and I'm just looking, again, all of our other hotels in town are not having this problem. If we're trying to solve a problem here, let's, I think we're being a little bit too lenient.
Well, if I could, Trustee Schoenbeck, I mean, I think there's always an issue of degrees, and I think, from we have talked about this quite a bit from an enforcement standpoint. The other thing is this is one aspect of an overall strategy. One of the other steps that we're taking is when we're giving our police officers and firefighters some additional training so that when they're in a building and they're a little bit more trained to identify common health and building code issues. So if they see one, they can either document it, and we've been doing remote inspections, and it's perfectly operationally feasible and legal to engage in FaceTime inspections with one of our building inspectors right then and there while they're on site, and also to call in a building inspector after hours. And we're setting up kind of an on-call system with our building inspectors so they can be called to these sites, because it's about, from our standpoint, it's about safety and compliance. It's about addressing those issues. But if we find, this is a pretty significant step forward, and I think from a staff perspective, if we find that we're not getting good results, or if we're seeing problems persisting, we always could revisit this, after a period of time and look at additional measures if we so chose. But this recommendation does enjoy the support of all of the departments, and we spent a fair amount of time, and Port Hart here had to redraft a couple of times based on feedback that we had. But we're from our standpoint, we think this is both manageable and will get us the results we're looking for. But obviously, time will tell.
Okay, and that's that's the most important thing is getting the results that you want. So if you're sure that this is going to get the results that you want, then I'm all in favor of it.
Yeah.
Trustee Lebedz.
Thank you, and thank you, staff, for getting to this point. One of the things that's always concerned me about those hotels, which are creating a lot of issues, is the fact that when police officers have to keep going to these same places multiple times a night, it takes them away from other parts in the village when we can't, and when something else might come up. And so, I actually am kind of thinking of Arlington Al Fresco, because the complaints that I would receive over the last couple summers about, not crimes, but, disturbances, I guess, if you will, going on, public urination and, loud noises and gatherings and stuff like that. But if the police are down at the hotels, then they can't be here.
No, absolutely, Trustee Lebedz. I mean, a very smart police chief told me a long time ago that there's 2 jobs of a police department: to keep people safe and to make them feel safe. And sometimes they're 2 different things. And, preventative patrol, going through neighborhoods regularly, is one of those things that makes folks feel safer and actually does catch things. But, the police department, Deputy Chief Czernecki here is, whenever you ask him for information, he provides a lot of data. And one of the statistics that he provided that stuck out to me is, just based on this year, we've spent an estimated 414 hours police officers have at 2 different hotels. I mean, and so to your point, that's 414 hours that could have been engaged in, what you suggested or other things. And I mean, so this is very much a resource management issue, and the numbers continue to increase. And our officers, I think, are responding very professionally. They're doing what they can, but this isn't something we're going to, 911 call our way out of. I think there needs to be additional preventative measures and management.
Yeah, and I definitely am supportive of that. And as you point out, it is important that the police be seen in other parts of town. It does make people feel better, and that's another that's one of our major purposes for being here is the safety of our residents and their perceived safety. I do have a question. The term continuous digital surveillance, that's in the ordinance. We had gotten a communication from Heather Larson at Meet Chicago Northwest about being concerned that there would need to be an employee who's watching the cameras on a site at a hotel, 24/7. At least that's how I interpreted her email, that she was concerned that there would need to be a staff member dedicated to that. But it didn't seem to me that was the intent in the ordinance. So if you could just clarify for me what continuous digital surveillance would mean and that sort of thing.
What we've talked about is that those recordings could be accessed 24/7 by an employee. So if there were something reported to an employee, if the employees at a hotel suspected something, they could call that information up at any time. It wouldn't be something that they'd have to go to, some company a week later to draw that up, that they'd be able to look at things in real time. We're not saying that someone has to be staring at a screen 24/7, 365, but just that at any given time in the hotel, someone would have access and would be, periodically monitoring that is kind of what our intent was. I don't know if Deputy Chief Zernecki would characterize that any differently. No. Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's kind of what I was thinking, so I was surprised at the thought that someone would have to be there monitoring this as if this was, like a top secret location where people are watching cameras all the time. So, all right, thank you. That's all I have.
Trustee Grassi.
Thank you. And first, thank you, Trustee Lebeds, for that question on the surveillance. I think that was helpful for me, and I appreciated that. I really do like this ordinance. Speaking to Trustee Schwingbeck, I really appreciated that we had a higher fine amount than even surrounding towns. I think that's important for those who have repeatedly had issues to know there's a really big fine coming up. I think that's important and good. So I thank you for that piece of it. But I really like this ordinance in that it really is giving our police the tools to hold those individual hotels accountable for their repeated nuisance incidents. And so this is a way to really help our police, help our residents, help our visitors feel safe and be able to do what they need to do safely in our town. And I also really appreciate the required meeting, first starting to try to have a conversation with those hotels that have the incidents. And I know you do that already, I think,
Yes.
But this is putting everything into writing to first start out, okay, this is an incident. Let's get together with the police chief and the village manager and let's talk about what happened, what you're doing to prevent this from happening again, what did you learn from it? And then very clearly knowing what the next steps are and having the tools really for our village and our police to be able to take care of those individual hotels. So I do support this and appreciate what you put into it, so thank you.
Any further questions? Trustee Bertucci.
Just a point of clarification. But first of all, Deputy Chief, I think I called you by the wrong name earlier, so I'm sorry for that. But Randy, take me through this. One of the things that I observed on one of the calls was the rooms smelled of smoke, and the police officer pointed out the reason why is because they disconnect the smoke detectors or whatever, and they're, which is obviously poses a major danger. So a police officer sees that, and now, so he's in the midst of whatever the call is, but then what happens with something like that where it's very obvious that there's a code violation?
So the protocol is being developed. I was just meeting with George Torres on this past week. There's a couple of different things going to happen. It'll depend on exactly the type of violation that they find. One, the cleanest thing is the police officer can call. There'll be a number that they can call, or the shift commander can call, and that officer will stay, because once they're on the scene and they have a reason to be on the scene, they can linger, and they will call a building inspector, and we'll have them on call, and they can show up, document it, cite the hotel or the individual for breaking that, safety violation. The second, and this is one that may be more efficient and may work in certain circumstances, and we already do this with building inspections, is do what we're calling a remote inspection, where they can document it through a FaceTime, on your phone type process, or video, and then a citation can be issued in that manner too. And in some situations will lend itself to one versus the other. But the second one is the thing that's nice about that is the officer can get back on the street in a quicker turnaround time. But so we're working that out. But that's kind of the idea. It's part of the strategy as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Randy, as one of the two village trustees that live on the south side, you and I have talked, maybe not 414 hours, but pretty close, about the challenges with two of the hotels on the south side. And I appreciate that you have put something forward. As I read through it, not 100% sure that I agree with everything, and I'm not 100% sure I understand everything. I look at an analogy that, we're having a problem with some restaurants, and then all of a sudden we change all of the levels of how these restaurants are going to operate because of the two restaurants that we're having a problem with. And I see that we're doing that here. And I might be able to get past that, except for there's a lot in here that seems very subjective to me, and it concerns me greatly. When I go through looking at the new ordinance, I see, I had the tenant, the guest, the visitor, but the mortgagee, the mortgagee is now a hotel authority? A contractor? I just feel like, I understand, an employee or a manager. You got any individual person, that's a lot of people. Employee, manager, contractor. Person in charge could be a manager too. Agent, firm, partnership. It just seems like we're casting such a broad net to encapsulate everybody. I have some troubles with that. I am very concerned with even the 14-201B when I read it, and it talks about accommodations are offered for considerations to guests in which 5 or more rooms, dormitories, apartments, or suites or other accommodations are offered or used for lodging or lodging and food for such guests. Sounds a lot like Lutheran home. How do we distinguish the difference between hotels and motels than other structures that might provide some of the same services? I then think about all the obligations that we're putting on the hotels, and we talk about digital, then you start to look at where we're at as a nation when it comes to people who are traveling. And while I don't use this feature, I know a lot of people who do, where you can do your digital registration before you get to the hotel. They'll assign you a room. How do we make hotels responsible when people don't have the obligation to check in at the front desk, because it's become such a norm in our society today? When you talk about 24-hour access to video, we still have to follow the laws, right? You would need a search warrant, wouldn't you?
If a hotelier we're asking that they have that information, they have access to it, and then it would be up to them. You're not going into private rooms. They would have the ability to share that with the police if they so chose. It wouldn't be something where you would need a warrant to get that information if the hotelier would be sharing it with us.
So a police officer comes into the front desk and says, "Hey, I saw somebody go into, the southwest corner of the building. Pull up the video." Are they obligated to do that?
The answer is no, Trustee Scaletta, they would not be. The idea is that they have a system in place that can record the video. We are not demanding that in this ordinance that they have to turn it over. That
But
would
24-hour access is different than 24-hour recording.
Most of the time, if there's something going on, hotel operators are happy to cooperate with police because they want to eliminate a potential safety hazard or someone that's going to be a threat to their business as well. And we're kind of relying on that because that's a helpful tool for the officers to have access to that. And we're confident that we have that relationship with most of our hoteliers.
I agree. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's someone working the front desk, and the police come in, and they say, "Well, by code, by the ordinance, you have to have access. Figure it out. I want to see." I mean, I just think I'm really concerned about how this was written in a way that, do they become a nuisance hotel because they're not cooperating? Because all of the authority is given to the chief of police and the village manager. And while I might trust you, and I might trust Chief Pecora, who comes after both of you?
Well, some of it is also has to be a hearing process for these types of things.
But there's quite a bit in here that gives a lot of autonomy and authority to the chief without the hearing process.
If I can step in, I want to make sure that the provisions on digital surveillance are not the same as the provisions on nuisance hotels. If a hotel, either in the moment or later on, does not voluntarily provide the digital footage, it may be that, based on the nature of the incident, the village would seek, through subpoena or search warrant, that information. That would go through normal police channels. But that would not be grounds to declare a hotel a nuisance hotel. Nuisance hotels would be declared based on the list of criminal or quasi-criminal behavior that could occur at a hotel that's independent of the hotelier's obligation under this proposed ordinance to provide a digital surveillance system.
Some hoteliers are concerned that at some point, if they have a business, and part of their business is privacy. And if people don't feel that when they're visiting a hotel that they have privacy, and they want to be able to reassure that their guests that there is privacy, and that if they're not, they don't want the trouble that we're talking about. They don't want that trouble. But they want to make sure that this is written in a way that it's fair to them, that this isn't going to come back at a later time and negatively impact them. Because again, as I've told them and I've said here, I trust Randy, I trust Chief Pecora. But we don't know who comes after. And this is just written very broadly, in my opinion. I also look at, the proposed ordinance defines hotel authorities very broadly. The person, these persons have a duty to refrain from encouraging or permitting a hotel or motel to become a nuisance hotel. So at some point, when a very attractive woman approaches the desk and is dressed in a very tight dress, they're now supposed to start to, stereotype, assume that, maybe she's there for an improper. I mean, I think that we're running into a problem where we've written this so broadly that we've given them such responsibility. But at the same time, I think that we're going to run into problems where we're now having them stereotype people or possibly discriminate against people. I'm really, really concerned with the way that this is written, and this really is no attack on staff or on legal. I just have great concern. I look at, all hotels and motels must be improved with secure doors, alarms, and a video surveillance system, all to the satisfaction of the village chief of police. That's a pretty broad statement. It's very subjective. And legal's always been about not being subjective. And it's always about being very objective. And and every I is dotted and T is crossed.
If I could comment on a couple of those things. I mean, certainly the broadness of the hotel authority issue is something that, you know, we've acknowledged can be tightened up a bit. But, you know, one of the things that we went through as staff when we were reviewing this is there is all of the activities that would make a hotel, a nuisance hotel, are things that are currently illegal. You know, there is nothing on there that's a new offense. It's the presence of various violations or illegal activities on the premises. And, you know, obviously, you know, the only thing that, you know, regardless of what a hotel authority reports to the police, that still has to go through the same filter that we do with any call that goes to the police. You know, we tell people if you see something, say something. You know, many of the things that people see and say don't constitute a crime and are not actionable by the police department. Many things. But we always tell people to err on the side of letting us know so we can make sure that none of those things are missed. But our police department is just because someone, you know, reports someone that appears to be doing something does not automatically mean that our police department is going to act upon it. They're going to apply the same professional standards that they do for any other phone call. But what we're really trying to do is make sure that these operators are doing all that's reasonable. And the reasonable test that it would go through would be through the chief of police, through a hearing officer, and like any of our other hearings, if someone felt that a hearing officer was doing something, you know, illegal, unreasonable, they have the ability to appeal that to court. And so they do have due process under this program if they feel they're being treated unfairly. Obviously, there is subjectiveness in this, and in terms of what exact measures should be required of businesses and when exactly they should be required of them, I mean, that's certainly a subjective thing. And, you know, staff took a crack at it, and ultimately this is a policy issue that's up to the board, and this can be written a lot of different ways. But I'm just pointing out kind of in response that was what our frame of thought was, and that, you know, there is a due process element here that folks do have. They do have the ability to, if they're unhappy with the results, seek relief from a higher authority.
What's the relief if I don't put up enough alarms and video surveillance to the satisfaction of the village chief of police?
That would be a violation of the proposed regulation section in 14204, and that's a code violation that could lead to a fine. That's not going to lead to a nuisance hotel. It does lead to a fine. Would be likely the first step. If a hotelier continued to violate that provision, there are provisions here that would allow suspension or revocation of a hotel license. That is drafted in here. Now, that's not meant for, I don't think it's intended for that, but it is meant for hotels that are chronic violators of either the regulatory or the nuisance hotels provisions.
I'm really struggling with this. I feel like we're trying to kill a fly with a sledgehammer. I can't believe that we don't have enough codes on the books right now to go after these violators that are creating havoc in the village, that we have to go to such draconian methods. And it's so subjective and it's so broad that encapsulate everything, and it gives way too much control to two people in the village. And yes, there is some oversight when it comes to administrative hearings, but I think overall it's just way too broad. And you know, normally something like this would be coming to committee of the whole. And at the same time, I can appreciate the fact that it's at a village board meeting so that it's recorded for the residents to see. So, you know, I see both sides of that coin. I'm not comfortable with this the way that it's written. And so I will be voting no.
I guess I just don't share some of the concerns that Trustee Scaletta just raised, especially with respect to a couple of provisions. The hotel authority, he cited the contractor and mortgagee in particular, but if you look at the the whole text of that section, it's not just any contractor, but it's a contractor that has a legal or equitable interest in the hotel or motel, actual or constructive possession of a hotel or motel, or the ability to regulate, restrain, dominate, counteract, or govern any sort of conduct that occurs within that hotel. So it's not just any contractor, it's a contractor that has some stake in the game and has some legal stake in the game. And so they could potentially be held legally liable for this type of conduct. So I have no concern after the amendment that was made, eliminating tenant, guest, and visitor. I think that is now appropriately stated. And then with respect to the responsibility of the village manager and police chief, certainly we have confidence in our current office holders, Mr. Ecklaus and Chief Pecora, but I would hope that the village board, whatever village board it is, that appoints or hires these individuals, you're going to have the same level of comfort with those individuals, whoever they are 20 years from now when Randy decides to retire. So, you know, it's incumbent upon this board to hire people and rely on people that are appointed by the village manager to carry out this policy. And so I don't share the same concerns.
So, Mayor, can I...
So I just wanted to follow up on Trustee Scaletta's comment about the cameras and stuff. First of all, two things. One is Randy had mentioned that one of our more reputable hotels in town were like, that's not a big deal to us. We're already doing it. Secondly, there has been violent crimes down there, both gun-related, knife-related, assault, sexual assault, and there are times probably at nighttime where that person might flee, and provided that the hotel management or whoever's on staff, if they can get access and say, and then the police can continue to follow up, I mean, I would think that that would be helpful. And now if they say they don't want to or they're not gonna, okay, fine. Now we got to go to court to get, you know, whatever we got to get. But I'm comfortable with the whole idea. I mean, we've all spent time in hotels and you know, when we travel, and they all have cameras in and out of their buildings, and I'm very concerned because the actual stuff is going on down in those two hotels, and it's without going through the gory details, I'm really concerned about I'm comfortable with this, but I'm more, you know, to the trustee Schwingbeck side of saying, did we not go far enough? But Randy said we could always add to this, and I suppose in some ways we could always subtract from it too.
Both true.
Any other questions? Trustee Scaletta.
So, to be clear, I mean, I drive through those parking lots on a regular basis. When I go south, I'm driving through those parking lots. There's people parked in the fire lanes all the time. The same cars are there every single day in the same spaces. And so we're creating this because we can't find a way to control those hotels in any other way. And when we talk about 14-201C, you know, I don't disagree with your added on of the caveats of any legal or equitable interest. Then why does it say any individual person or firm with any legal or equitable interest? I mean, it just, it goes, I mean, it covers everybody. And I hear you that, you know, then all of a sudden it starts to break it down, you know, with any legal or equitable. I just find that there's just way too much in this ordinance that it doesn't make me comfortable. And I feel like we're going a little bit overboard. And there's enough people here to vote in favor of it. I'm just concerned with the way that it's currently written.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? We do have a motion and a second, and this is an ordinance, so roll call.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Canty?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Grassi?
Yes.
Trustee Lebeds?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
No.
President Hayes?
Yes. So the motion carries, the ordinance passes. We thank everyone involved. I know it was a big team effort to get this drafted and before us tonight, so in response to a problem. And so hopefully this will help solve the problem. So thank you, everybody. Any further business from the village manager?
Nothing this evening.
Right, under petitions and communications, this is our last meeting before the 4th of July holiday. We're very thankful to have our Frontier Days back after a 3-year hiatus. They were back in a very condensed form last year, but we're full-blown this year. And so with the full-blown Frontier Days, that means they need a lot of volunteers. And so I've been asked, and I'm very happy to put out a clarion call for volunteers for Frontier Days, even at this late hour. So if there's any individuals, any 501c3 organizations that would like to participate as volunteers, either in the overall 5-day festival or especially in the food booths, please contact Donna Jonas at 847-630-2027, or see any of the red shirts. They're around town. You could visit their website as well. It's an all-volunteer organization, so they rely very heavily on their volunteers to put this 5-day festival on for the benefit of our community. And so please, we need to get some more young people involved in this organization to continue this great event for our community that's been here for decades now. And so, again, have a very safe and happy 4th of July holiday, and enjoy Frontier Days. So thanks, everybody. Any other petitions and communications? Seeing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
By Trustee Labette, seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you all for joining us this evening.